Today, we're digging into a really powerful idea that's shaping a modern conflict. We're going to explore how a national myth, a story a country tells about itself, can actually become its foreign policy, and what happens when that myth smashes right into reality. So let's just get right to the heart of it with this quote. When the president was asked about the war, his question wasn't about strategy or the outcome, it was about the performance. That one question really tells you everything you need to know about the approach here. War, presented as a kind of show. And this idea of performance over, solemnity showed up in a very public way during one of the military's most sacred ceremonies. As the remains of 6 fallen U.S. soldiers were being brought home, the president was there wearing a campaign hat. It kind of blurred the lines between the solemn duty of a commander-in-chief and the brand of a political campaign. And the spectacle didn't stop with interviews. The administration's official social media started mixing actual combat footage with clips from video games like Call of Duty. All of a sudden, the line between the hard reality of war and just, entertainment got really, really blurry. So you have to ask, right? Where does this whole mindset even come from? Well, this is nothing new. To really get it, we've got to go back in time, way back, to the black and white TV sets of the 1950s. Get a load of this. In just 1 week in March of 1959, a whopping 8 of the top 10 TV shows were Westerns. This wasn't just some popular genre. It was the cultural foundation, the story that was being built night after night in living rooms all across America. And out of all those stories came this really powerful political fantasy, what we call cowboy individualism. You know the one, the lone hero who doesn't need laws or bureaucracy. He just trusts his gut to do what's right. It's an incredible story, and it was about to jump right off the screen and into the world of politics. Yeah, this whole idea didn't stay on TV for very long. It made a direct leap into the political arena. Barry Goldwater started using the imagery back in the 60s, but it was Ronald Reagan in 1980 who really, truly became the ideal. He didn't just borrow the image, he was the cowboy president, and he cemented that identity right in the heart of the Republican Party. So let's track how this ideal became this lasting legacy, a theme that gets passed down through generations of Republican leaders. We're talking more than a campaign slogan here. It became a central part of the party's whole brand. Supporters like the radio host Rush Limbaugh were very clear about framing President Reagan this way. See, he wasn't just a politician. He was the classic hero out of a Western movie, wearing the white hat, the good guy, fighting against his opponents. Now, fast forward 20 years, and the exact same language is being used to defend President George W. Bush's war in Iraq. That cowboy label became this powerful political shortcut, right? A way to sell a complex foreign policy like it was a simple story of a good guy taming a wild frontier. And that brings us right up to today. Senator Lindsey Graham drew a straight line, calling the current president Ronald Reagan Plus. This frames the whole thing not as something new, but as the final evolution of that cowboy ideal that started, more than half a century ago. So what happens when this simple, heroic myth gets used as the playbook for a really complex 21st century war? What happens when the black and white world of the cowboy runs head-on into the messy, gray reality of an international conflict? And this is where the gap between the story and the reality just becomes impossible to ignore. On one side, you have the myth, the hero who's a beacon of integrity, the one who can clearly see good and evil. And on the other side, the reported reality of this war, sinking a warship in international waters, a strike on a school, and a public attitude of not being bound by, quote, stupid rules. And listen, the administration's own words back this up. The defense secretary said point blank that this was never meant to be a fair fight. It's a conflict where, as he puts it, overwhelming force, not traditional rules, is the name of the game. This way of thinking has led to some pretty specific and shocking actions. For instance, a U.S. submarine torpedoed an Iranian warship. But here's the thing. According to reports, this didn't happen in the heat of battle. The ship was in international waters, it wasn't involved in the conflict, and it was just heading home from a routine naval exercise. And the consequences for civilians have been just devastating. Reports indicate that the U.S. appears to be responsible for a strike that hit a girls' school in southern Iran. That attack killed more than 168 people, and a large number of them were children. So what's the actual cost of a foreign policy that's driven by this cowboy myth? Let's break down the numbers, both in dollars and in human lives, to really understand the impact. Okay, first, the money.
This conflict is estimated to be costing $1 billion. And that's not the total cost. That's every single day. And this is all happening at a time when programs back home have seen cuts to try and reduce the national debt.
And this economic fallout isn't just some abstract number. It's hitting people's wallets directly. With oil tankers avoiding the area, U.S. gas prices shot up 14% in just 1 week. And you know that has ripple effects through the whole economy. But the public response from the administration has been to kind of brush off these worries. The president tweeted that higher prices at the pump are a very small price to pay, basically framing the economic hardship people are feeling as a necessary sacrifice. But of course, the most terrible costs are the human ones. This is the lives lost in that strike on the girls' school. Over 168 people, so many of them just kids. And this is the number of crew members who were believed to be on that Iranian warship attacked while it wasn't even involved in the fighting. It's just another stark reminder of the real people behind the headlines. Which really brings us to one final huge question. When that simple, heroic story a nation loves to tell about itself becomes its actual military strategy, who is it that really ends up paying the price for that fantasy? It's something we should all probably be thinking about.